What you just heard is the famous 5 p.m. chime, which is a music that plays in all Japanese cities at exactly 5 p.m. So all major Japanese cities have a really big network of speakers in case something goes wrong, because in Japan you usually have quite a lot of earthquakes. By playing this music every day at 5 p.m, you basically test this entire system and make sure that each of these speakers is still working the way it should. But this is only the official reason. When I came to Japan for the first time, my host family basically told me that this 5 p.m. music is to remind the children that it's 5 p.m. now and that they should probably go home because it's getting dark. The more you know. Today's going to be a very short video. Going to the supermarket later to get some food, maybe going to the gym afterwards, but before that I want to talk about something that I couldn't talk about the past 2 days, which is vlogging in general. Alright, I'm only doing this for 1 week now, and there's still 2 more weeks to go until Vlogmas, but I think even though I'm only doing this for 1 week now, it's still enough to give some kind of review. The good things first, vlogging changes the way you behave. Naturally, when you go out for the first time and you point your camera at yourself like this, people look at you, people talk about you, people probably think weird things about you. The thing you need to learn is to not care about what these people think, because if you care about that, you cannot be yourself in front of the camera, and then your video will not be the way that you want it to be. I have really big problems with that. Whenever I'm outside and I point my camera at myself and people look at me, especially when there are a lot of people, then I feel very awkward, like I just want to shut my camera down and do it at some other point. But at the same time I try to force myself to do that because I want to get the video done. Not just for videos, in general when you force yourself out of your comfort zone, you will naturally experience things differently. But there are also of course some difficulties, and this is what I want to talk about today. But for that, I need some paper. Alright, what many people think vlogging is about is this. Your day probably starts at some point here. This is when you wake up. At some other point you probably sleep. Between your wake up and between your sleep you have a couple of events. You have lunch, you have work, you have maybe a date, maybe a dinner, something like that. What many people do when they vlog, and I'm also a little bit guilty of that, is this. They try to capture everything. This means at some point here they turn on the camera and at some point here they turn it off. But let's face it, who wants to see that? When you take a look at good vloggers, however, you see that they only capture a small span of their day and not the entire thing. This is what they call the story. The story is what your vlog is about. It's the adventure that you had on that day, the thing that you learned. People want to get either educated or entertained. No one wants to get bored. Another problem is, if you capture your entire day, every day, you will run out of content very, very fast. But finding the story of your day is the difficult thing. It is not an easy thing to do. One problem that many people, including me, have is that they work, meaning 8 hours of your day is going away. During that time, you cannot tell a story. During that time, you cannot find a story. During that time, you can also not think about a story. So the only time that you have to create quality content is either after work or before work. And this is a very difficult thing to do. I hope that makes sense.